Good morning and welcome back to Reading Wikis for You, where we read the wiki articles for you. And today we're going to continue our look at the different factions within the fictional Battletech universe by taking a look at Clan Steel Viper, one of the invading clans from the Clan Invasion storyline. So, with that said, don't forget, while I'm reading, make sure you put a comment down below. Let me know what articles you'd like to see next. I'm happy to get those into the schedule. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Clan Steel Viper was one of the original 20 clans founded by Nicholas Kerensky, named after the Steel Vipers found on Babylon. Clan Steel Viper's early years were marked by the treachery of their founder, now simply known as the Traitor Khan, and decades of aimlessness even as the clan's warriors honed their martial skills. During the Golden Century, Khan Sana Mercer finally gave the Vipers a vision to strive for, rebuilding the Star League through cooperation with the great houses of the Inner Sphere. As a result, the Vipers, while often classed as a warden clan, shared the Crusader objective of returning to the Inner Sphere and recreating the Star League in the clan's image. In the mid-31st century, the Steel Vipers won a place in the clan invasion, but while they carved out an occupation zone, the Vipers suffered soul-wrenching defeats on Tukiad and later the Hegira War when their rival Clan Jade Falcon expelled them from the Inner Sphere completely. Under Brett Andrews, Clan Steel Viper rose to prominence as the dominant clan in the homeworlds, playing a major part in initiating and conducting the Wars of Reaving. Victorious against the Society and rival clans, the Vipers found themselves annihilated when their former ally, Clan Staradder, turned the remaining home clans against them. History. Founding. When Nicholas Kerensky founded Clan Steel Viper, he originally endorsed Antonius Zalman to serve as its first Khan. Antonius Zalman had served under Nicholas's father, fighting the usurper in the Star League Civil War, and demonstrated unshakable loyalty to the Kerensky family. At 80 years of age and in failing health, however, Antonius knew he was unfit for the honor and so refused. Instead, he asked that Nicholas endorsed a protege of his, Lieutenant Eli Kinnison, a former member of the 131st Battlemech Division. In turn, Eli Kinnison agreed to accept this responsibility only on the condition that Antonius accept the position of Sakhan. Antonius agreed to this arrangement, and both were voted in by their clan. Under her mentor's continued guidance, Khan Kinnison helped shape the Steel Vipers into an effective fighting force molded under the new clan military system. She instilled in them those qualities which had served Antonius so well in his fight against the usurper: flexibility, adaptability, and independence. Khan Kinnison's role in shaping the clan would be expunged in later clan histories, which instead emphasized Sakhan Zalman, eventually referring to him as their true spiritual founder. Regardless, Sakhan Zalman died after just 2 years of service, when a training accident took his life. His loss would force the Steel Vipers to vote in Star Colonel Stephen Breen as his replacement prior to their return to the Pentagon Worlds. Operation Klondike. Assigned to Arcadia during Operation Klondike, the Steel Vipers worked alongside Clan Staradder, Clan Bloodspirit, and Clan Ghostbear, under the initial direction of Staradder Khan Absalom Truscott. Disaster struck on first landing, however, when the Ghost Bears abandoned the planned landing site and grounded closer to the capital of the nation of Hastur. This left the Staradders facing forces from Hastur and the Ilkasur Shogunate, with the latter comprising over a regiment of force. The Staradders successfully drove off the attackers, but at heavy cost. Khan Truscott was slain. The Blood Spirits and Steel Vipers landed and moved to intercept the withdrawing Shogunate forces, pinning them against a trinary of pursuing Staradders and breaking them quickly. With Truscott's death, the Steel Vipers were prepared to discard his plans entirely, but the Blood Spirits convinced them to cooperate and adhere to at least the outline of what had been planned. While the other two clans dealt with the nation of Hastur, the Vipers and the Spirits worked to conquer the Shogunate. In the Shogunate, the clans found warriors of like mind. Combats were often fought as single duels. Fallen or disabled warriors given full honors, and surrendered warriors were paroled and made part of the new administration. The campaign against the Shogunate took place at speed, with the Steel Vipers especially often bypassing enemy strongpoints to focus on other targets. The Blood Spirits came behind, spoiling counterattacks against the Viper rear, taking bypass positions, and moving in as reserves on occasion when the Vipers found they could not prevail alone. The battle at the Shogunate capital of Quito was a negotiated one. Shogun Wikii Leonov bargained with Sakhan Stephen Breen for a battle to be held outside the city, without aerospace forces and with proportional sides. 2 stars of the Blood Spirits were bid by Breen to offset the loss of aerospace assets. For 6 hours, the battle was fought. When the Sakan and the Shogun had their battle mechs disabled early in the battle, they joined one another to observe the remainder. Finally, the shogunate surrendered. The partner clans then set out for the Confederation of Arcadia. The clans bid for the right to assault each city-state. 2/3 of the bids were won by the Steel Vipers, but several times they had to call in Blood Spirit reserves, making the gains roughly equal in the end. The decisive battle came between the cities of Graz and Talman, where all sides committed their reserves extensively before the Confederation broke. Mop-up took 6 weeks, but the clans' victory was never in doubt. As the other clans were still engaged with their objectives, the Blood Spirits and Steel Vipers took on the continent of East Arcadia. Their first objective was the former Arcadian capital Rivera, which the Democratic Republic of Rand had renamed Tianto. The city fell quickly to the combined forces of the two clans, but after they set out from the city, the garrison left behind came under counterattack from Rand, along with resistance from inside the city. It was during these battles that Star Captain Devon Boakes proved himself able to work with other clan warriors as well as his own. This resulted in Boakes becoming the Spirit's first Sakan following Klondike. Seeking to pacify the rest of the Rand Republic, the clans faced a new enemy, the weather. Seasonal storms limited their conquest to only 7 targets in 46 days. Once the storms calmed, however, the rest of the Republic fell quickly. The two clans then split up. The Steel Vipers faced Helgren County, while the Blood Spirits moved on to the Kingdom of Surev. Both nations had taken advantage of Rand's preoccupation with the clans to make temporary gains in their own territory. With Rand gone, the county and the kingdom sent peace delegations to negotiate with the clans, but the clans were not interested in compromise, only surrender. In Helgren County, the Vipers faced well-trained troops. Sheriff Tiberius Reed was a former SLDF captain who kept most of his regiment on Arcadia during the Second Exodus. In Talbot Moraine, Reed trapped a binary of Steel Viper troops. Seeing this as taking hostages, the Vipers ignored every attempt at parley, seeking the destruction of the Helgren military. In response, Sheriff Tiberius Reed deliberately sought out and challenged a Blood Spirit patrol. The battle lasted a minute and a half, leaving Tiberius a bondsman of the clan, who would later be adopted and rise to the rank of Star Colonel. The Steel Vipers objected, though. The Ilkhan ruled it a valid act, and this led to a deep rift between the clans that had cooperated so closely up until that point. Akan's treachery. After the success of the Pentagon campaign, Clan Steel Viper was placed in charge of occupying Arcadia and assimilating its populations into the clan way of life. Under the leadership of Khan Kinnison, the Steel Vipers proved highly efficient at this task, earning the attention of the Ilkhan when he made a tour of the planet. During this tour, Khan Kinnison presented him with a gift of a huge Steel Viper taken from the planet's jungles, possibly an early sign of her growing affection for Nicholas and an attempt to win his. In the following years, all of the clans grew in size with the births of both freeborns and trueborns, except, most notably, the Steel Vipers. Where a typical clan Sibco would graduate 4 or 5 warriors, the Steel Vipers were instead graduating 1 or 2. Concerned by this, the Ilkhan dispatched Clan Seafox scientists to examine the issue. Khan Kinnison gave the observers full access to the Steel Viper breeding program, and after much examination, the Seafoxes concluded there was nothing inherently wrong with the program. The Steel Vipers simply followed a more demanding program which graduated fewer warriors but of higher quality. They returned to the Ilkhan with their findings, along with an invitation for him and his wife, Jennifer Winson, to vacation on Arcadia and inspect the program themselves, to which he agreed. Khan Kinnison took a personal interest in arranging all security matters for the Ilkhan's visit. Unwilling to let an unusual yet inevitable spike in rebel activity taking place within Steel Viper territory to derail the visit, while Sakan Breen was in charge of security, every decision of his was double-checked on a daily basis by Kinnison. When the Ilkhan and his entourage had arrived in system and were half a day away from the planet, she began to check in with him every hour to ensure all preparations were complete. With less than an hour until the Ilkhan's arrival, Sakan Breen decided to make a final personal tour of the drop site, where, stepping into a storage warehouse, he was attacked by 3 masked warriors. He subdued all 3 at the cost of a broken arm, but nevertheless sounded the alarm and began searching the warehouse for more assailants. He took by surprise 2 more warriors, setting up a high-powered sniper rifle, and killed them with his laser pistol. Breen searched the 2 bodies, but found no evidence as to their plan, until the voice of Khan Eli Kinnison came through the assassin's 2-way communicator. Stephen Breen rushed to the landing site where the Ilkhan's dropship had touched down, arriving as the ramp unfolded and Nicholas and Jennifer descended to meet the waiting Kinnison. Having seized one of the assassin's pistols, he fired at the Steel Viper Khan, hitting her in the shoulder and dropping her to her knees. As Breen was set upon by 3 other Steel Viper warriors, and both Nicholas and Jennifer were surrounded by their bodyguards, only the Steel Viper saw Khan, and the ill Khan's wife saw what happened next. Khan Kinnison drawing a pistol and aiming it squarely at Jennifer Winson. Managing to break free of his attackers, Sakon Breen drew his laser pistol and fired again at his Khan. This time his shot punched through Kinnison's head and killed her instantly. Stephen Breen surrendered himself to Joint Wolf Steel Viper custody while the Ilkhan and his advisors investigated the cause of the assassination attempt. Nearly 24 hours after the attempt on his life, Ilkhan Kerensky and Stephen Breen appeared before the blood-named of Clan Steel Viper, where Nicholas revealed the findings of his investigations. By interrogating the subdued conspirators and searching through Khan Kinnison's personal effects, especially her diary, Nicholas revealed that Ellie Kinnison had developed an unhealthy obsession with him and hoped that by killing his wife she would somehow take her place at his side. To the relief of the assembled warriors, he chose not to punish the Steel Vipers for the pathetic plot of a deranged woman, but instead condemned her to obscurity in what would become known as the Ritual of Abjuration. With the endorsement of their Ilkhan, the Steel Viper blood-named elected Stephen Breen to take over as senior Khan and elected Star Colonel Chandra Zalman as the new Sakon. In the months that followed, Khan Breen would lead his clan to victory in a number of trials of possession launched by other clans seeking to take advantage of the situation. The Golden Century, clan without a cause. While the Golden Century was a boon to most of the clans, it would prove to be a rough time for the Steel Vipers. Compelled to excel in military matters, the clan's martial prowess grew in the years after the traitor Khan's death. Though this came at a cost to the civilian case, whose opportunities for growth were curtailed, this led to restlessness among the lower case, which led to rebellions becoming an everyday part of life for the clan, which in turn increased the warriors' commitment to military excellence. The clan became aimless, its warriors losing focus on anything but training for war purely for the sake of it. This loss of purpose also affected the civilian case. Scientists were unsure of where to focus their research, and merchants had trouble establishing stable trading partnerships. After Stephen Breen and the clan suffered from a string of Khans who not only failed to harness their clan's effort towards a higher purpose, but pursued their own personal agendas with no regard for precedent. Khan Jacob Masters, for example, failed to appreciate the value of Omnimex following their introduction and did not pursue this technology, instead directing his scientists to create the ultimate mech weapon, which eventually led to the development of the Ultra Autocannon 20. These Khans were also content to allow the Steel Vipers to fall behind on exploring and exploiting new worlds. This flip-flopping proved to be a source of frustration when other clans attempted to work together with what derisively became known as the Rubber Viper. This changed in 2860 when Khan Masters nominated a brilliant young mech warrior, Sonra Mercer, to the position of Sakon. Khan Masters believed Mercer, who had espoused no political views at all during her career, would be a loyal aide in fulfilling his plots. The magnitude of Masters' error became known in a matter of months as Sonra Mercer began circulating among Steel Viper warriors what she called Nicholas Kerensky's true vision for the clans, claiming to have recordings of secret meetings which took place between Kerensky and Stephen Breen. In these recordings, Mercer claimed that the Ilkhan intended for the clans to eventually return to the Inner Sphere and reconquer all of the worlds which once belonged to the Terran hegemony. In this respect, the clan Steel Viper would serve as the Ill Clan, the leader of the clans, since the others were too caught up in their petty interests to implement the founder's vision. Once the hegemony was liberated, the Steel Vipers would turn towards the rest of the sphere, but rather than subjugate them through naked oppression, Clan Steel Viper would instead help guide the great houses in the formation of a new Star League. After their armies had been defeated in honorable combat, of course. Once the leadership of the great houses had been brought into line, their people would be taught the error of their ways and the wisdom of the founder by the Steel Viper civilian case, who themselves would receive rich rewards after years of austerity. Sonra Mercer never produced evidence as to the existence of these recordings, much less their content, but it mattered not. Even those warriors not swayed by her charisma and who questioned the source of the information were willing to overlook such things if it gave their aimless clan a higher glorious purpose. Support for Mercer grew among the low-ranking warriors until she became a threat to Khan Masters in the current power structure. Hoping to regain control of the situation, Khan Masters convened the clan council and charged Mercer with treason. While the eloquence of Sonra Mercer won her many more converts among the blood-named, she was still found guilty. Mercer challenged the verdict to a trial of refusal and faced off against Khan Masters and his aerospace-heavy force at 2-to-1 odds. The battle was going in Masters' favor when a lucky Gauss rifle shot from Mercer's Highlander hit the Khan's aerospace fighter cockpit, killing him instantly and demoralizing his force enough to allow victory for the Sakon. Shortly thereafter, Sonra Mercer was elected senior Khan on 12 August. A self-imposed quarantine. Con Mercer immediately went about tearing down the old power structure and unifying her clan towards the goal of Kerensky's true vision. This included removing those who disagreed with this new direction, either through reappointment or trials, and consolidating her power base with those loyal to her ideals, such as pushing through the election of Habash Grimani as the new Sakhan. Her position secured, she began to formalize a policy of protecting the Steel Vipers from what she privately called the corrupting influence of the other clans. Her first edict was to completely ban the lower case of Clan Steel Viper from interacting with those of any other clans, all except for the merchants, who would remain under close supervision of the warriors. The warriors of the Steel Viper clan welcomed these policy changes, seeing them as a natural progression from the defensive mindset they'd adopted following the traitor Khan's actions. Many other clans saw it differently, however, with some accusing the Steel Vipers of following in the footsteps of the not-named clan. Con Mercer defended her actions in both words and deeds as being orthodox, saying the Steel Vipers still believed in the teachings of the founder, and even that the other clans had a role to play in the true vision she espoused, though her clan would be at the forefront. In the end, the Grand Council dismissed her policies and statements as indicative of youthful arrogance and encouraged other clans to do the same. As she promised, Con Mercer's isolationist policy was not meant to completely cut them off from the rest of the clans. Steel Viper warriors were encouraged to test themselves by launching attacks against the other clans. The Steel Vipers made up lost ground by finally acquiring Omni-Mech designs through these efforts, as well as the technology behind battle armor and new genetic material. Bowing to the wishes of her merchant caste, Con Mercer even authorized the founding of several new colonies, despite fears such distant settlements might stray from the true vision. This policy helped Clan Steel Viper earn the enmity of Clan Snowraven during the conflict over the ownership of Hellgate between 2897 and 2899. An inhospitable world, Hellgate was rich in germanium and ideally situated as a trading hub. The Snow Ravens put in much effort into colonizing Hellgate, including the construction of agrodomes to feed the planet's population. Rather than attempt to conquer the whole planet, Clan Steel Viper instead fought a series of trials for control of the agrodomes and in the end won. Denied the ability to produce food locally and unable to import sufficient supplies, Clan Snow Raven was forced to cede control of the planet to the Steel Vipers. It was also during this time that the Steel Vipers became enemies of Clan Jade Falcon, although not on purpose. In the Grand Council, the Steel Vipers frequently voted against policies put forth by the Jade Falcons. This opposition was not for personal reasons, but as a matter of principle. Clan Jade Falcon saw it differently, however, and in 2906 decided to retaliate by launching an assault on the Steel Vipers' capital on New Kent. After 24 hours of hard fighting, the Steel Vipers emerged victorious, but not without a heavy cost. Con Mercer died in the final battle when a volley of missiles destroyed her Highlander's cockpit. Sonra Mercer's legacy would not end with her life, however, and for the next few decades, succeeding Khans would uphold the true vision and continue her isolationist policies. Political century. At the dawn of the 31st century and the start of the political century, clan society had begun to divide itself between two competing philosophies: the Crusaders, who believed in conquering the inner sphere, and the Wardens, who opposed them. Given their well-known views on the subject, many observers believed Clan Steel Viper would declare for the Crusaders and add their military strength to the cause. Indeed, many Steel Vipers privately relished the opportunity to lead the clans in returning to the inner sphere, but they also had their misgivings. Returning to an inner sphere which had been burned to ash in the Crusaders' reckless attack would not provide a conducive environment to recreating the Star League through cooperation. In the end, Con Royce Chapman, who chose to keep his clan neutral. In 3000, Con Nadia Winson of Clan Ghostbear made the first proposal in the Grand Council for the clans to conquer the inner sphere. Seeking to prevent the invasion for as long as possible, Con Curlin Ward of Clan Wolf proposed the Dragoon Compromise and began lobbying the other Khans for support. When he approached the Steel Viper Khans, Curlin appealed to their philosophical leanings to gain their support. Only with the data provided by Wolf's Dragoons would the Steel Vipers have the information needed to gain the cooperation of the inner sphere in recreating the Star League. Overcoming his bias against freeborns, Con Chapman supported the Dragoon Compromise. For the next few years, the information the Dragoons returned with did prove helpful. It confirmed the great houses had indeed survived the succession wars, which gave the Steel Vipers hope there would be leaders among them, wise enough to convert to the true vision. The Steel Vipers continued to block further invasion proposals until 3048, when Con Leo Showers of Clan Smoke Jaguar revealed information from the seized outbound Light Explorer to give the impression the inner sphere had discovered the clans. The Steel Viper Khans, Natalie Breen and Paragard Zalman, were compelled by this information to vote in favor of invasion, and the motion passed in the Grand Council. Now that the invasion was a reality, the Steel Vipers sought to win a place in the vanguard of the invasion, not just to fulfill the true vision, but to hopefully mitigate the other Crusaders' bloodthirsty tendencies. The clan did well in the trials to determine who would invade the Inner Sphere, but in the end achieved mixed results. They would not serve as one of the 4 primary invading clans, but had won themselves a place in the invasion as the 5th Reserve Clan. Operation Revival. As the Reserve Clan in the invasion, the Steel Vipers could only watch as the other 4 invader clans overpowered the Inner Sphere and conquered world after world. Such disappointment only increased thanks to the dishonorable tasks they were forced to undertake, including garrisoning worlds conquered by the Ghost Bears during the 3rd wave of the invasion. Some solace came when Khans Breen and Zalman noticed the invasion's progress was noticeably slower than planned, and anticipated their clan would soon be called forth to shore up the advance. Instead, the invasion came to an abrupt halt when Leo Showers, Ilkhan, and leader of the invasion force, was killed in orbit above Rodstadt. The invasion was put on hold as the invader clans returned to clan space to elect a new Ilkhan, Ulrich Kerensky. It was Ulrich Kerensky who activated Clan Steel Viper and added them to the invasion force, although they would be forced to share the same invasion corridor as the Jade Falcons. In this way, Kerensky hoped to sabotage the Jade Falcons' advance towards Terra by pairing them with a hated rival. For their part, the Steel Vipers were simply happy to finally take part in the invasion. The Jade Falcons were forced to hand over one of their planets to the Steel Vipers and chose Waldorf, a world far removed from the front lines. In thanks for this glorious gesture, the Steel Vipers retook Twycross, site of the Jade Falcons' most humiliating defeat at the hands of the Federated Commonwealth, and during the 5th wave of the invasion targeted Jade Falcon and spheroid worlds alike. When Ulrich Kerensky approached the clans with Comstar's plan for a proxy battle, the Steel Viper Khans agreed. Tukiad. Assigned the targets of Kozis Ranch Station and Kelly Springs during the Battle of Tukiad, the Steel Viper Khans bid 3 galaxies, the front line Alpha and Gamma with the second line Zeta galaxy held in reserve. Setting down en masse on the open expanse of the Kozis Plains, Alpha and Gamma galaxies both advanced via the Devil's Bath, a horrific combination of geysers, boiling mud, and narrow paths walled by massive granite columns, stretching for dozen kilometers between the Viper's drop zone and their target cities. With the tight paths negating the clan weapon's superior range and missteps, losing entire stars to the bottomless pools of boiling mud, Khan Natalie Breen realized too late her troops had stumbled into a massive trap. Attempting to pull back and go around the Devil's Bath, a desperate Center Bishor Yekel of the Comguard's 6th Division issued an insulting public challenge to goad them into continuing their attack via the Bath. Enraged by the insult, the Vipers redoubled their advance, pushing the 6th and 78th Division through Devil's Bath. While ultimately obliterating both divisions, both Alpha and Gamma galaxies used up their ammunition in the process, with Elite 1st Division blocking Zeta's attempts to resupply them. With Zeta reinforcing the virtually unarmed Alpha and Gamma as they reached the far side of the Bath, the Steel Viper advance met the fresh and untouched 321st and 401st Divisions, who stalled the Vipers until the 1st and 386th Divisions could enter the fray and finally drive them back. Recognizing her blind rage had doomed her forces, and with the defeat of several other clans freeing up other divisions from other fronts that could be redeployed against them, Khan Breen ordered her warriors to board their dropships in defeat, ultimately stepping down and allowing Paragard Zalman to become Khan. Aftermath of the invasion. Although Clan Steel Viper had failed at the Battle of Tukiad, their losses had been much lighter than those suffered by the other participating clans. As such, Khan Zalman and Sakhan Christopher Ahmed were able to quickly rebuild their forces and direct their warriors' anger at a new target, Clan Jade Falcon. Between the time of the loss at Tukiad in the middle of 3055, Clan Steel Viper succeeded in conquering 9 worlds held by the Jade Falcons. This expansion of their territory gave Clan Steel Viper access to vast amounts of resources, which they used to strengthen themselves both militarily and economically. Unfortunately, this also overstretched the clan, especially when the peoples of these worlds unexpectedly began resisting the Steel Viper's rule, and civilian disturbances increasingly tied down the Steel Viper military assets. When the refusal war between clans Jade Falcon and Wolf broke out, the Steel Vipers were in no position to take advantage of the situation. In fact, the war only increased the number of uprisings and further destabilized Steel Viper worlds, especially when the Wolves' liberation policy of freeing and arming civilians on conquered Jade Falcon worlds became known. Christopher Ahmed responded to this situation first by leaking intelligence on Wolf movements to the Jade Falcons, then by granting Natasha Kerensky's request for the Wolves and Jade Falcons to stage a battle on Twycross. Ahmed justified his actions as a way of allowing the two clans to continue pummeling each other until only the Steel Vipers would be left as the strongest to face the Federated Commonwealth, and as a way of earning the Steel Vipers the gratitude of the eventual victor for their assistance. The end result of the refusal war bore none of the fruit Sa Khan Ahmed promised, and the Steel Viper clan council effectively charged him with treason. Rather than taking the matter before the Grand Council as was his right, Sa Khan Ahmed agreed to be judged by the clan council, which found him guilty. He then demanded a trial of refusal, which was fought between himself and Khan Zalman's champion, Brett Andrews. Andrews killed Ahmed on 14 March 3058 and assumed his position as Sa Khan. The trial of Christopher Ahmed caused great anger among many of his supporters, though, and for the next few months the Steel Vipers were paralyzed by political infighting, further preventing them from preying upon the weakened Wolf and Jade Falcon clans. Eventually, the deadlock gave way towards the summer of 3058, but by that point the Steel Viper Khans was called back to the homeworlds to elect a new Ilkhan. To add insult to injury, whole clusters were lost in the harvest trials to Clan Wolf, bolstering their numbers at the Steel Vipers' expense. They bore witness to the destruction of the Smoke Jaguars by the Second Star League and sat out the Great Refusal, joining the Warden clans in opposition to the Crusaders. In the Wars of Possession, which took place afterwards, the Steel Vipers hardly participated. They attempted to seize former Smoke Jaguar holdings on Homer, but were repulsed by Clan Cloud Cobra. Additionally, the Snow Ravens regained a portion of Hellgate and used it to stage strikes against the Steel Vipers in an effort to retake their former possession. Hegira War. The reason for the Steel Vipers' token efforts in the Wars of Possession became very apparent on 1 April 3061 when the clan launched a massive invasion of the Jade Falcon occupation zone. Khan Zalman had been seeking a casus belli to attack the Jade Falcons and found it when Khan Martha Pride allowed Diana Pride to compete for her blood name. Between the start of the hostilities and 15 May, the Steel Vipers succeeded in capturing 13 Jade Falcon worlds. Building on this success, the clan launched a second wave of attacks, and between 16 May and 1 June, captured another 7. Unfortunately, the Steel Vipers had not counted on the sudden arrival of Martha Pride with fresh reinforcements on 4 June. The Jade Falcons outflanked the Steel Vipers, striking against the lightly held Coreward planets, while, with approval from Vlad Ward, other units traveled through the Wolf occupation zone to strike at the Spinward worlds. Within weeks, the Jade Falcons had retaken many of their holdings and moved on to seize Steel Viper worlds. The critical moment came on Waldorf, where both sides deployed several galaxies of troops. The rules of Zelbringen were completely forgotten as the two clans went at each other, none more so than Peregrard Zalman, who personally sought out Diana Pride. The Steel Viper Khan finally caught the young Jade Falcon mech warrior on Damon Beach, but despite superior numbers, he was defeated. Realizing his forces could not prevail, Peregrard Zalman grudgingly accepted Martha Pride's offer of Hegira and agreed to withdraw not only from the Jade Falcon worlds they'd seized, but from the entire occupation zone. Wars of Possession. Now removed from the invader clan's ranks entirely, the Steel Vipers set about making themselves the dominant home clan, instead following their arrival back on the homeworlds in January 3062. During the Wars of Possession that raged across the homeworlds, the Vipers focused their efforts on their old rivals, Clan Snowraven. An opportunistic attack on Homer by the Ravens ended in victory for the Vipers as their returning troops surprised the attackers, after which the Vipers spent the next 3 years probing at the Snow Ravens and gathering information about their strength. In 3065, the Steel Vipers put this information to use in a major assault on Lum, fighting their way through the Ravens' orbital defenses and seizing a landing zone. From this, the Vipers pushed outwards until after a month of fighting they held a sizable enclave on Lum before being forced to retreat by a combination of low supplies, the Ravens' blockade, and the threat of a Jade Falcon attack upon their new holding. In a costly naval operation, during which Khan Zalman was killed, the Vipers successfully withdrew from Lum. The battle on Lum also cost the Steel Vipers much war material for no territorial gains, although the Snow Ravens were badly bloodied as well. Other Viper forces during the Wars of Possession clashed with the Fire Mandrels and Goliath Scorpions on Marshall. The Wars of Reaving. On 1 December 3071, Clan Steel Viper Khan Brett Andrews was elected Ilkhan. Intent on removing the taint of the inner sphere from the clans, he would use the trial of Reaving as a tool repeatedly in pursuit of this goal and against ever larger targets, thus initiating the Wars of Reaving. On 29 July 3075, during a session of the Grand Council, Clan Staradder Khan Stanislav Nbuta turned Brett Andrews' own words against Clan Steel Viper, using them as a reason to call for a trial of Reaving against Clan Steel Vipers. Andrews, outraged, demanded a trial of refusal and killed Khan Nbuta with a laser pistol in violation of the Council's own rules regarding weapons in the Council chambers and clan honor when the trial was to be unaugmented. Driven to rage, the rest of the Grand Council voted in favor of a trial of annihilation against Clan Steel Viper. When Andrews demanded another trial of refusal, Clan Staradder saw Khan Hannibal Battletech immediately seized Brett Andrews and bludgeoned him to death with the Staradder ceremonial mask. Annihilation of Clan Steel Viper. Over the next 5 months, the clans gathered their forces and waged war under their newly elected Ilkhan Battletech, taking no prisoners from Clan Steel Viper. The Steel Viper defense congregated on Circe in their capital of New Kent. After Circe fell, the clans moved their fleet, with the McKenna's Pride leading, on to New Kent. Though the Steel Vipers lost the naval battle, the ground invasion was narrowly repelled at New Kent City. Rather than suffer further losses from a stunted ground invasion, Battletech ordered their withdrawal and called on the McKenna's Pride to carry out the annihilation of the remaining Steel Viper enclaves on the surface through orbital bombardment. As New Kent City burned, clan ground forces remained on the outskirts to catch fleeing survivors, but none, neither warrior nor civilian, attempted to flee. McKenna's Pride continued bombardment until nothing of the city remained, taking the last resistance of Clan Steel Viper with it. Their few remaining enclaves, small and undefended, were taken quickly, and on 10 February 3076, the trial of annihilation was declared complete. Although the clan was ostensibly annihilated, their blood names were claimed by other clans and remain listed as active as of 3085, although noted as having 5 or fewer active blood rights. Culture. Early in their history, Steel Vipers adopted a form of self-enforced isolation, though nowhere near as extreme as practiced by the Blood Spirits, which led to their unique philosophical position among the clans. Depending on one's viewpoints, they could be regarded as crusading wardens or warden crusaders. The clan's central tenet, instilled in them by Sonora Mercer, was the restoration of the true Star League through cooperation with the Inner Sphere, rather than total subjugation. Of course, this cooperation would take place under the benevolent guidance of the Steel Vipers, following the complete destruction of the Inner Sphere's military forces, so that the misguided spheroids may be led onto the path of truth by the rightful Ill Clan. However, efforts at enforcing this policy within their occupation zone were less than satisfactory. While they blamed their failures on previous Jade Falcon mismanagement and extremists who did not wish to be liberated, the Vipers failed to realize it was largely the discrimination of freeborns that would forever doom their efforts. Mirroring the views of more fanatical clans such as the Smoke Jaguars, the Steel Vipers' low opinions regarding freeborns relegated them to the lower rungs of society, and as such they were treated poorly. This policy extended into martial matters, and save for a brief period under Khan Peregrard Zalman, freeborns were generally barred completely from serving in the Steel Viper Tumen. Because Steel Viper military training was so strenuous and the number of dropout cadets was so high, the clan had a much higher percentage of trueborns among their civilian case than in other clans. However, because their training was so intense, there was less stigma to this failure than normal. Many trueborns rose to become the leaders of their civilian case, and so served as an important bridge between the warriors and the other case. Military. The command structure of the clan Steel Vipers Tumen emphasized a clear delegation of authority and well-defined areas of operations. The Khans laid out the grand strategy of a campaign, which was enacted by galaxy commanders, who formed the strategic command of each operation and delegated tactical responsibilities to their star colonels. The effect was that individual commanders were given considerable leeway in how they completed their objectives. However, cooperation between Steel Viper galaxies was poor, as each commander recognized only the authority of the Khans and the clan council, and even within a galaxy, the cluster commanders would only accept orders from their immediate superior. For large-scale operations, then one of the Khans must be present in order to coordinate multiple galaxies, with a similar problem for multi-cluster operations. This heavy reliance on senior officers rendered the Steel Vipers especially vulnerable to headhunter operations. As happened on Tukiad, should senior command be incapacitated, cooperation breaks down, and individual units can be isolated and destroyed in force. On the tactical scale, Steel Viper units relied on maneuverability and firepower, with many battle plans centered on those concepts such as the Viper's Maw or the Coil. The Steel Viper's attitudes towards Zelbringen was one of pragmatism and adaptability, a fact which ensured success over the centuries. Against a respected clan foe, the rules of honorable combat were strictly followed. For those considered dishonorable, such as Intersphere forces or a mortal enemy like the Jade Falcons, whatever was deemed necessary to ensure victory was permitted. Clan Steel Viper warriors underwent the toughest training of any other clan save the Blood Spirits, which took place at the Sandsea Training Camp on New Kent or the Fer de Lance facility on Arcadia, where most Sibcos would graduate 4 or 5 warriors. Steel Viper Sibcos would graduate 1 or 2 at most. The trial of position to become a warrior also differed in that it forced cadets to face another member of their Sibco to ensure only the very best graduated. The issue of graduating fewer warriors per Sibco was somewhat alleviated by the practice of training twice as many cadets as other clans, resulting in only a slightly smaller Tumen. Because of the ban on free births serving in the Tumen, the Steel Vipers also allowed a cadet to fight a second trial of position and so earn a place in the conventional infantry ranks. These seconds, however, were treated no better than the free births they replaced. Alright, we are not going to look at the article for the Clan Steel Viper blood names, but let's get into inter-clan relations. The Steel Vipers, again, despite their talk of cooperation, were almost completely at a loss for allies among their fellow clans. Their isolationist and self-serving politics alienated both Warden and Crusader clans, and their arrogant attitude towards others did not serve them well. Clan Snowraven, enemy. The clan made enemies of the Snowravens for their attacks on Homer. Clan Jade Falcon, enemy. Clan Steel Viper would, by accident, become a well-known enemy of the Jade Falcons for always opposing their policies. After the death of Viper Khan Sonra Mercer, the Steel Vipers experienced a shift in policy and began doing everything possible to make the Jade Falcons' lives miserable. However, their rivalry would backfire on them when the Falcons pushed the Vipers out of the Inner Sphere forever. While the Steel Vipers would exact revenge by abjuring their rivals out of clan space, the Jade Falcons would get the last laugh when the Vipers were annihilated a decade later. Clan Staradder, enemy. Following their ejection from the Inner Sphere and return to the clan homeworlds, the Vipers would ally with Clan Staradder to form the Snake Alliance. However, this alliance's relation would not last as the Staradders would turn on the Steel Vipers due to their tainted status, eventually leading to the Vipers' downfall. Clan Firemandrel, enemy. Prior to Operation Revival, the Steel Vipers made enemies of Clan Firemandrel, with whom they shared the world of Marshall, on account of their arrogance, igniting a low-level feud which lasted for many years. Clan Cloud Cobra, enemy. After Clan Cloud Cobra held the Babylon Diet in 3067 with support from Clan Coyote, Clan Steel Viper would attack the religious clan for inviting Inner Sphere powers to the clan homeworlds. After the Vipers' defeat, the Cobras would respond swiftly by taking Homer from them. After this, the Steel Vipers would relent and form the Snake Alliance, ending their downfall after the Wars of Reaving. Clan Ghost Bear, enemy. The long-standing feud between the Ghost Bears and Steel Vipers is due not to a single slight or battle, but a foundational disagreement between the founders of each clan and their philosophies. Rulers. There are specific articles for Clan Steel Viper Khans, Sakhans, and Lore Masters. Those will all be linked in the article, which you can find in the description. Era-specific data. As of 3062, Steel Viper demographics. Affiliation, Warden. Population in clan space, 57,275,000. Population growth rate, 1.8%. Self-sufficiency index, 91%. Leaders, Khan, Paragard Zalman. Sakhan, Brett Andrews. Lore Master, Arthur Stokeless. Scientist General, Gunther Kuroda. Merchant Factor, Turan. Master Technician, Dor. Senior Laborer, Alberto. Military, Clusters, 39. Warships, 15. Clan Space Worlds. Capital, New Kent. Arcadia, 37%. Grant Station, 55%. Homer, 15%. Marshall, 15%. New Kent, 66%. All right, there we go. Another one of the invading clans in Clan Steel Viper. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of this particular clans. Do you like any of the, we'll call them non-invading clans, or do you kind of just stick to those that actually showed up in the storyline a little bit more often? Let me know. I'd love to get your comments. But otherwise, let us know what articles you'd like to see next. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.